Everyone in Ashford Hollow whispered about Jacob Crane. He wasn't like the other children. While the rest played tag in the summer dusk or whispered ghost stories around campfires, Jacob sat alone at the edge of the playground, watching with eyes too sharp for a boy of 7. And whenever he smiled, thin and knowing, something bad happened. The first time, nobody noticed the connection. Emma, the neighbor's daughter, had been running circles around the swing set when Jacob pointed at her and giggled. She tripped. Not unusual. But when she hit the ground, she didn't scream. She didn't breathe. Her eyes stared glassy and hollow, like the light inside her had been blown out. The doctors said it was a sudden seizure, a tragedy. Jacob just smiled wider. By the time the third child collapsed, this one clutching his chest, pale as candle wax, the whispers began. Parents crossed the street when Jacob passed. Children refused to sit near him in school. His teachers said he had a coldness about him. But Jacob didn't care. At night, in the attic of his crumbling house, he played with his collection. Dozens of tiny flickering globes floated in glass jars. Each one pulsed faintly, like a dying firefly. When Jacob pressed his face against the jars, he swore he could hear faint screams, muffled like cries from underwater. They weren't toys. They weren't pets. They were souls. Jacob didn't remember when he first discovered the trick, only that when he willed it, when he wanted, a thread of light would lift from a person's chest, and with one sharp tug, it belonged to him. And once a soul was gone, the body was nothing but a husk. He grew bolder. The town's children thinned one by one. The parents panicked. The sheriff organized nightly patrols. Yet no one ever saw Jacob do anything. No knife, no poison, no hands around a throat. Just that smile. And soon after, another child missing from the world of the living. It was the preacher who finally confronted him. Father Harlan marched to the Crane house at midnight, Bible in hand, fury in his eyes. "Demon!" he hissed at Jacob. "You'll answer to God for what you've done." Jacob only tilted his head. The flickering jars behind him filled the room with ghostly light. "God?" the boy asked softly, his voice barely more than a hiss of wind. "Do you think he's watching? Do you think he'd let me keep them if he cared?" Father Harlan raised his cross, but before he could speak the words of banishment, Jacob's hand shot out, not to touch the preacher, but to point. The old man's knees buckled, his breath hitched, his scream echoed inside the jars, and then it was gone. Another faintly glowing orb floated above the preacher's chest, dangling like bait on an invisible line. Jacob plucked it with ease and slid it into an empty jar. By dawn, the preacher was found lifeless on the church steps, his face frozen in silent horror. And Jacob? Jacob walked to the playground, dragging a wagon behind him. Inside rattled rows of glowing jars, each soul screaming, begging, burning faintly in eternal captivity. When the other children saw him coming, they scattered, but Jacob just smiled. There were still so many empty jars.